knives and guns will certainly be blazing. Charles, it's good to see you again. It definitely is that week in which that report was tabled. Whether it will be falling on deaf ears, I think it has been quashed. What else is likely to be on the show by the alcohol contra bill?
We're seeing, of course, a lot of shifting of positions, especially regarding the long-standing boycott of members of the opposition in Parliament. Government has tabled a report. The opposition has decided to end its boycott of plenary. So we'll be exploring that and, of course, many other issues on the front line tonight.
Frontline. After weeks of locking horns over human rights, disappearances and other issues, the opposition finally returned to Parliament to receive the long-awaited report.
Honourable members, I have an invitation.
Finally, State Minister of Internal Affairs David Muhoozi laid the report on the table of Parliament.
The Uganda Police did conduct investigations into the matter of the alleged missing persons. The police, however, was confronted with a number of challenges and constraints which do compromise the integrity of the findings from the people given by the Honourable Lop as next of kin. The NIRA records information of 9 people out of the 18 wasn't available. The data profile lack thereof from the various agencies for the given names is contained in Annex F, and I will refer to each of the names later.
The opposition pledged to subject the report to close scrutiny and come up with a response soon.
If you feel pain, you are alive. If you feel other people's pain, you are a human being. Let each of us place ourselves in any of those spaces, whether we are both or one of those.
As tears roll down the cheeks of those who say their loved ones have been missing for more than 2 years, government insists that some went abroad. So who is fooling who?
Omukazi ngali mabunda ngali kuno omwana mulala. Oba bayina omusango mubalete mu kkooti bavunaanibwe ekyo nakyo kiggwe.
The report also strongly denies accusations of targeting Muslims, but some members of the opposition beg to differ.
In all its manifestations is an individual choice. Any attempt, therefore, to seek shelter in ethnicity, religion, gender, or political affiliation in order to evade criminal liability is grossly misleading and untenable.
Wondering whether they only made this statement to pass time that we have made a statement.
But what gives me comfort is that the conclusion of government is that they were unable to come to the bottom.
Does the report address the issues raised by the boycotting legislators? Will it bring an end to the infamous era of drones and beating of civilians by security personnel? Will it be sufficient to quell the opposition's fury? This is The Frontline. Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of The Frontline. I am Charles Mwangushampagi, and tonight we tackle that report on human rights, the response of government to a complaint by the leader of opposition presented to Parliament demanding accountability for Uganda's human rights record, raising issues about Uganda's human rights record and shrinking civic space. The State Minister for Internal Affairs, General David Muhoozi, presented the report to Parliament yesterday, which also saw members of the opposition return to receive the report. But what exactly led to the cracking of this? How to resolve a resolution of this situation? What was the dealings? How far will this go? The report is interesting. The Minister Muhoozi says in part of the report, the statement that Uganda is among the worst human rights abuses is sweeping, unsubstantiated, and false. And then he adds, in the unlikely event that infraction by individual agents of governments, whether in the scope of the employment or outside of the scope of the employment, or even where private citizens are involved in alleged abuses, the matter can only be addressed in specific terms and not in a casual or generalized way. We'll be discussing that with the panel that I have in studio tonight. We're still expecting to be joined by the State Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Jackson Kafuzi. He should be on his way here. He'll be joining us, and I'll announce when he gets here. But I have in studio with me, from Butambala, from the National Unity Platform. When we started having this discussion, I did say that he was in acting capacity as a leader of opposition. The Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, very nice to have you, sir.
Nice to be here, and once again, nice to be with you for a second time today. Second time?
Yes.
Same day.
We'd been together earlier discussing about victims of terrorism by Uganda Young Muslim Development Forum. Yes. Very nice to have you, Honorable.
Very nice to be here. And we can't go without making a small comment on what happened in the morning.
We'll come to that in a moment. Let me just finish the introductions and then I'll give you the minute to talk about it. I have lawyer Edgar Tavaro, advocate Edgar Tavaro.
Man from Kijura.
Man from Kijura.
Yeah.
These guys don't have a road going to Kijura.
It's flooded. And yet we have the biggest tea estate, tea plantations in Africa. Toro Kahuna tea estates is 22,000 hectares. But the roads.
I thought you'd talk more about the investments of Ugandans. You know, when tea was introduced in Uganda, Ugandans were not allowed to grow the tea crop. It was a struggle that allowed people to grow. And now to find that in the entire Uganda, native Africans who own tea estates, I think are only two.
No. There are many,
not who own tea estates,
yes.
tea factories.
No, there are many more. There are many more. There are those tea factories that were diversified, divestiture process, and placed in the hands of
the former Uganda Tea Growers Corporation is owned by a corporation, but individual owners
it's owned by outgrowers.
Yes, outgrowers.
Yes.
And that is a group.
Yes.
Individual tea factory owners. You're talking about Mzee Kakiomia.
Yes.
You're talking about James Garuga Musinguzi.
Yes.
You're talking about Hassan Basaja Balaba.
But also
you will not find many.
You're forgetting Mukwano. Mukwano.
No, I'm talking about native black.
Well. No, the tea, I'm sorry, we're taking a bit of time on this. Tea prices are taking a very bad beating.
Yes.
And we need intervention from government.
Did you attend the...
We are going to make it an electoral issue.
Did you attend the Investors Forum conference yesterday?
Those forums,
please.
You mainly invite people with lighter pigmentation, and we natives are left out of it. But
on the Investors Forum, tweeted, made an interesting tweet on who was reporting the other to the president who is sabotaging the investors.
The investors. But he's not an investor. What does he know about investors?
No, he's the government spokesperson.
Much obliged.
Now, I usually tell people that I don't have to be in Nazareth to know that Jesus was born there. But I'm an investor, a local one, at a small scale.
The other day with the big inverter.
Now you can imagine he can't differentiate between a inverter and a turkey. that's how ignorant this MP is. But anyway, I will keep educating you and updating you about the birds of Uganda, especially the domestic ones, the domesticated ones.
Turkeys,
He's an investor.
Turkeys, geese are not native Ugandan birds.
If I recall, in 1996, the Honorable Kaindo Tafira advised your presidential candidate to go and rear Mbata. You remember?
Let me introduce Ofono Pondo, Executive Director at the Uganda Media Center and a frontliner. Missing on the show tonight, Ibrahim Semujunganda. I believe he's traveling with the Parliament sports team or something. There could be something that...
But I thought that's for people who have come back to Parliament.
Yes.
Has he come back?
They're back in Parliament. We'll go into that discussion in a moment.
Were we there today? Was the opposition there today?
The statement that Uganda is among... that Uganda's human rights record has... The statement that Uganda is among the worst human rights abusers is sweeping, unsubstantiated, and false. That is a statement from the Minister of State for Internal Affairs, General David Muhoozi, in his report, responding to a complaint by the leader of opposition that sent members of the opposition out of Parliament in a boycott. Out of the plenary in a boycott. And he adds, in the unlikely event that infraction by individual agents of government, whether in the scope of the employment or outside of the scope, or even where private citizens are involved in alleged abuses, the matter can only be addressed in specific terms and not in a casual and generalized way. From the onset, I would like to debunk the misrepresentation in the title of the statement by leader of opposition about the generalized claim of gross abuse of human rights and so-called shrinking civic space. And he adds, democracies evolve, Uganda is one of them. We'll go into the details later. The Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, I'd like to start with you. Could you kindly bring us up to speed on these developments? What is the status at the moment? Are you officially back in plenary? Are you still boycotting? What is going on?
First of all, I would have expected you to give us a pat on the back.
Let me just a minute.
That is very important.
You just reminded me. You just reminded me that you wanted to make a small comment on the engagement.
Yes.
Where we're both involved in the morning.
Yeah, and it was. I've attended various forums, but the one in the morning was one of the kind. He was, as usual, the presiding officer, and we were meeting victims of terrorism. Tabaro, if you had attended that meeting, that interaction, you could easily have broken down. It was heartbreaking, hearing confessions of people who have lost out on quite a number of, and people whom we have ignored over a long time. People are confessing. And after the cameras have gone away, and you have stayed with the issues and the victims, they've been narrating how their businesses collapsed, how disabled to educate their children. It was heartbreaking, and we've made a commitment to do some level of advocacy to bring the plight of victims of terrorism to the rescue of government, and you need to just respond. It is very sad. The rest of the civil society, all of us in the public arena have ignored that segment. And even in the fight against terrorism, it's a little bit of an element or a variable that we have completely neglected. And it's high time all of us focus on the victims of terrorism. I mean, those who commit terrorism can be in prison, but what happens to those families? What happens to the people who have really been amputated? It was terrible to meet those people. I know he's very strong, but I saw him nearly being moved to tears by those confessions.
Yes.
And going forward, I think we are going to do everything we can to bring their plight to light. And they're all over the country. From Kasese, that small organization, I don't want to call it small, that organization did a tremendous job in reaching out and giving a voice and a space for, I think, for all intent and purposes, we have all of us ignored the victims of terrorism.
I think one of the key things that came out was the stigma associated with physical scars that result out of terror incidents. The other one, I think, for me was especially the focus is on women victims of terrorism, and that definition of who is a victim. There are those who actually were there when the incident happened and have physical scars. There are those who are affected in various different ways, and they never get attention beyond the immediate aftermath. Our government has been extending some help, burial expenses, a little bit of medical help here and there, but what happens after that?
But more importantly, there's the trauma.
Yes, the trauma.
The psychological trauma.
And
our interventions in that aspect are really lacking.
And there's no
really
victims
lacking.
fund. Some of them date back, the Deputy Attorney General now is here, date back to Kichwamba, 1998. Some of those men are walking in the streets of Kampala looking for help, they can't find any. But let's go back, Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, let's go back to the discussion, and let me use the opportunity to also introduce the Deputy Attorney General, the Honorable Jackson Kafuzi. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Man
you.
from our place.
And
we're very proud of him.
And you know, before
Mr. Barrow, tonight you are really tribal squinted.
No. Not everybody from Toro is ethnically Mutoro.
I didn't say so. I didn't say so. I'm saying you are tribal squinted tonight.
No, Toro is a region.
Edgar, please, let the show run. Let me come back to you. Where are we at the moment?
Yes, I was.
In terms of,
for beginners, I was saying you should have been generous to the leader of the opposition in Parliament, Honorable Matthias Mpuga, for leading the troops for 1 month in demanding for this statement, no matter whether it is right or wrong, because government from the beginning, you remember their statement. The very minister who read this statement, the last time we were in Parliament, said he had explained everything. He had nothing useful to add on, and he said, I'm done. So, for us to force government to come up with, by the way, not only this statement, it's a whole file.
It's a 311-page document. The report itself, the statement itself, is about 15 pages.
It's about 15 pages, but when you look at the annexes, it goes to 300, detailing in specific terms each and every case. For me, that's a huge achievement. If I go very far into the details, whether this statement is false or wrong, and that's a part on the back. One, on the method of a struggle. I think we acted in...
I think you jumped the gun a little bit there. I asked, what is the status?
Now, the status...
Where do you stand at the moment?
Where we stand at the moment is that we are making a response to this statement on Tuesday.
Is the boycott over?
No, it's not over. That's why today we are not in Parliament.
You returned yesterday to listen, to receive the statement?
We had demanded a report from government. It will be uncouth for us, for government to say, I have the report, and you are not there to receive it. So we had to go back and receive the report. And our going back was specifically to receive the report. And had the speaker not adjourned Parliament, we were supposed to get out of that Parliament again.
After receiving the report?
After receiving the report.
What was your demand going into this boycott?
No, the demand going into the report...
The boycott?
The boycott were the following. Forget about the issues that are raised here, the 7. A specific one, we demanded an accountability of all the cases that the missing persons. We demanded an apology from the state to end this impunity. We demanded to bring to book all the officers that are culpable. We demanded that government makes a commitment not to do the same acts again. And then later on, there were other emerging issues that we added on. We added on other issues of the Baralo, the Muslim clerics. We added on the issue of the fishermen, where we wanted the government to commit itself. And when you read through this report, some of those issues have not been tackled. And therefore, we are going to make a fresh demand that the issue of Baralo be tackled, fishermen be tackled, the issue of Muslim
I see the issue of fishermen talked about in that statement.
It was talked about in very thin lines. So, on Tuesday, the leader of the opposition, the Right Honorable Matthias Mpuga, will be making a wrong and a specific line-by-line, comma-by-comma response to this statement. And for what you've read, we'll put it to shame.
So what would this suggest that the boycott is over? You attended the receiving of the report?
Yes.
Yesterday. You will be in Parliament to
respond.
To respond.
Yes. And after that response, we are going to raise specific demands from government. Because you see, I don't want to go into the details of this report. But he's a lawyer. Okay? And I'm not a lawyer. We are now having terms of unwitnessed disappearances. To list you that you disappeared, government cannot account for you because your disappearance, you and him are lawyers. I want you to press unwitnessed disappearances. The government in this report, for example, if I were to go specific, let me go speak on two issues. Senteza Frank, that died in, if you read the report, that was murdered at Chibuye, noted here. First of all, they confess that behind the minibus, there was a UPDF truck. And our account is that it's this UPDF truck that knocked Senteza. Now, in this report, they confess that true, there was a UPDF truck behind, but they go ahead to say that no post-mortem was done. But they conclude, I want to give you, I just want to give you a few inconsistencies. But they go ahead, one, that his body was taken to Mulago, no post-mortem report was done. Yesterday I asked the Minister of Internal Affairs, General Tafire, on CBS, why he did not even go for exhuming the body to conduct the post-mortem report. And they are basing now on their conclusion to say that Senteza fell off a van and fatally died. I'm just giving you an example. And I'll take you through the Kibarama story as it is. I'll take you through.
I'll come back to you into the details in a moment.
So in terms of strategy of where we are standing, we until on Tuesday, when we respond, our response will come not only a response to a statement, but a response to also our next course of action.
Thank you. Let me move quickly to the Deputy Attorney General and ask a similar question. From where you sit, what is the status of the standoff or the stalemate over plenary between the opposition and the government?
Thank you very much, our host, for this evening. I apologize, I came in a little late. I got stuck in traffic. Now, asking me about the status of the standoff, one, it is a right of anyone who disagrees with the procedure of Parliament to walk out. So it is their right. The rules permit it, except that the law is silent on how long one can keep out. If I disagree, I can walk out, but the issue is for how long. Now that is theirs to determine as a party, as a team. If they are dissatisfied, they can keep away. But Parliament continues. So I do not see any standoff because the work of Parliament is such that you're expected to talk, to discuss, and in so doing you agree and disagree. And that's why they say those who disagree can walk away. And for some reason, they can come back once they are satisfied by the goings on within the House. Now, they set terms which we have met as government. They asked for accountability, for a statement. The Minister of Internal Affairs made that statement. Ideally, I would have expected them to have stayed in the House yesterday, so to have been in the House today, but they did not. I do understand that they sought time to rebut, to make a response, which they are going to do, I think, on Tuesday. So it's then that we shall see what happens next. But to the best of my knowledge, there should be no more standoff because the government has responded to their queries.
Honorable Deputy Attorney General, did it have to take this for government to account for its own citizens?
What do you mean?
That the opposition is out of parliament for a month before a statement is issued?
Incidentally, our host will tell you that yesterday is not the first time that the government has had to respond to that very matter. We've held several meetings with my colleague Mwanga Chivumbi as a team in parliament to discuss these very allegations. They've been brought back again and again, over and over. But you see, your question is, did it have to take this long?
No, did it have to take a boycott? And would the boycott have to run for a whole month before it's responded to adequately?
Let me start by saying this. Human rights are for us all, and they should affect us all. We should all be concerned where human rights are concerned. But the problem comes where you mix human rights with politics. Every time you mix human rights with politics, your intentions are questionable. And you form two sides, those who will believe you with your intentions and those who will be cautious about what your intentions are. Now, our colleagues made these allegations, not once, not twice, and they have made it on several occasions on the floor of parliament. The efforts government has made to investigate these allegations have hit a rock. We did not get the necessary or the requisite information in most of those, relating to most of those allegations that would have helped us come back on time. That report tells you the police followed the allegations. They went to the several locations of the people who are alleged to have been abducted, their homes and whatnot. And the people there refused to cooperate. The alleged people who would have helped us, who would have helped government give information and help the investigation, refused to cooperate with police until they were approached by what they thought was an NGO. So when the investigators camouflaged as NGO, they were able to get information. So it means you have made allegations against the government. You've put a rope around the government's neck. Government is under obligation to investigate. The investigative arm of government has gone to do that which you want it to do. But the people are being uncooperative.
Are they just being uncooperative because they allege, the allegation is that government, the same government is responsible for the disappearances of the same people? So if you're believed to be the perpetrator, how do you expect the victim to cooperate with you?
Incidentally, if you read that report, it will tell you that at some point, every time they approached these people would get back to members of this party to consult on whether they should cooperate or not. And they were told not to cooperate. So meaning that there was someone, I don't want to call it an invisible hand, but someone deliberately pulling the strings, determining the pace at which this matter should move. Human rights are for us all, and we are all affected. Let me tell you, when someone disappears, his family is affected. When I came in here, although I arrived late, we were discussing the victims of terrorism. But also human rights abuse has victims, not just those people who are who have disappeared, who are alleged to have disappeared, but their families, they are what. So the people in government are also human beings. When they set out to investigate this matter, they know that they should do it. They are under obligation to do it as government officials, but they are also human beings. They are affected by human rights. But when you tell the people who would be giving government the information to help them get to the root of the matter, you tell them not to cooperate. Then you can go to the media and use that to hit government and show it in bad light. It means you are using this for political gain.
We'll come to the detail of that in a moment. Seems to be wanting to step in there. If government is the accused, isn't the suspicion or the fear justifiable from the alleged victims?
You are both a journalist and a lawyer. What does the laws of Uganda say? Or the laws of the world? When you accuse the government of Uganda, are you saying it ceases to have authority to investigate the matter you are raising? It continues to have authority. Now, if for some reason you doubt the credibility of its processes and possible outcome, then in our laws, you have safeguards, you have remedy. You can actually ask for a coroner to be appointed. If NOP guys say the government of Uganda, the police don't trust, then they can actually apply for an appointment, an inquest for a coroner to be appointed. Under our laws, the coroner is assumed in the law and in fact to be above being compromised by the daily maneuvering of a government, because it works like a court of law, or even beyond. You are the lawyers, you know. So I disagree with you in that respect. But let us go back to the beginning. You remember when this matter was first raised, the minister who was responsible then was the Honorable J.J. Odongo. At that time, our colleagues said that the minister's response, which was not once, there were many responses, were shallow. And basing on their judgment of the response to be shallow, they have continued to put the same demands. At no one time, to the best of my recollection, has government said, we won't listen to you. In fact, what provoked their walkout that time, when General David Muhoozi, the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Minister of State for Internal Affairs, was presenting, that was when they walked out. It is not that the minister had refused to, had snubbed. The minister was actually, they walked out on the minister when he was presenting. On the same matter. Now you have asked, did it need to take 30 days? Or let us even say, the last 2.5 years? It didn't need to take, but if you are playing political games, you use that as a stratagem so that you keep these accusations, false or true, in the media to be a current, so that hopefully you are able to soil the government. And I think from where I stand, from the officers, the institutions of government I interact with, I think they are partially succeeding. They want to keep this matter a political issue and election issue until 2026, so that 2026, the issue will be a government which is worse than Amin, which was worse than Obote, which is worse than any other government that have been around, so that perhaps the elections are around human rights issues. And we don't, I personally don't begrudge them. If they want to make that the election issue, we shall meet in the field at that time. So I think there is an intent so that they keep refusing to accept that the explanations are accurate, are sufficient, are genuine, even where there are shortfalls. Where do I base myself? Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi, when he spoke here today, and the other time when we were with him here, I think 2 weeks ago or 3, he actually said that they have been adding new issues. Because you remember when he said, not just these 7 issues, we have now added the Muslim clerics, we have added the Balalo, we have added the fishermen. Tomorrow, I'm sure he's going to ask about PDM. He's going to add another thing. So the nature of the tricks, the stratagem, is that you keep raising new issues so that the matter doesn't come to a conclusion. To give you political relevance, to give you mileage. Again, I don't begrudge them. If that is the stratagem, it should be the executive's side now.
The fundamental questions being raised.
Yes.
And these questions are on alleged disappearances.
But this is what I'm saying.
Yes.
That if the government comes and says, you remember when this matter started, they said over 1,400 people had disappeared. Now you ask yourself, how come they're now talking about 18? Did the government answer the other 1,386 or not? Or 382 or not? 2, yes, at that time, you remember, they made an allegation, a wide allegation, and I think they believe people will believe them, that the November riots, over 200 people died. You can go and check on the many talk shows we have had here with them. Honorable Semujo, Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi, Honorable Segona, and others, and the NUP Secretary General. They have been saying over 250 people were killed during that riot. Now, in their own statement, they're saying 56. The government, they initially said 54. The government has said now they're 56 by yesterday's statement, 56. Some of whom died as a result of gun-shot wounds, and others, what General David Mohoza, and he's a lawyer, as you know, he's very calculated with his words. He's a military intelligence officer, so he sticks to the facts, which he says incidental to, as in the case of the accident, the motor accidents, as in the case of people who could have been hit by stray bullets and things like those. Now, if the boycotters refuse to accept the finding of government, again, that is their right. Now, the facts are on the table.
Thank you.
It should be for the public now to examine who is telling the truth, who is genuine. I think that's where we are. But if they choose to keep away, that again is also their right. We shall see whether the politics of in Parliament will actually stop, or the politics in the country will stop.
Tabaro, you're a lawyer. Let me come to you. Situations where government is a perpetrator of abuse of human rights are not uncommon. The accusation against the government of Uganda by the opposition is that, number one, the government of Uganda perpetrated the killings, November 18th and 19th, 2020. It has been perpetrating abductions and disappearances of their supporters, and it is the same government going to do an investigation. And government says the people, the victims, the alleged victims, have been uncooperative. Is that totally unexpected?
From the outset.
And should government be trusted?
From the outset, I'd like to set this clearly. Issues to do with fundamental human rights are sacrosanct, and as such, call for bipartisanship.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being, any one of us is a potential victim or a potential of being at the receiving end of transgressions of either the state or state actors. And I say this because there's a background to all this. There are some very, very senior ex-security chiefs with advanced degrees in law. When they were at the helm of these organizations, they liked to speak tough, talking tough. When their turn came to be at the receiving end of the excesses and transgressions, they started raising the very things they were talking against, fundamental human rights and what have you. Lawyers with advanced degrees.
Isn't that how governments renew themselves or survive? Different actors at different moments.
Exactly.
Speaking tough.
So, yes.
And then changing language.
Changing language when they're on the receiving end. And I'd also like to, I'm going to avoid mentioning names for very simple reasons.
Don't you think they are also doing politics? Some of them?
And I'm coming to that. Unfortunately, I don't want to be dragged into politics. I'm a lawyer in practice. I'm a businessman too. I'm a meat exporter.
Why are you hiding your head like an ostrich?
I'm not hiding my head in an ostrich.
You do the Kalangwe at another time. So, yeah. let's discuss developments in Parliament.
I'll come to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I've been to court, by the way. I've taken some of these state actors to court. One of them was the head of a security organization. And he had a detention center at an island on Lake Victoria. I took him on to court and got orders to that effect. You already the Deputy Attorney General, and I remember making a specific complaint, which was forwarded to the appointing authority. And in 60 days, he had lost his position. A detention center where he was using inmates as for forced labor on his, I think, sugarcane or palm. You've detained people. Now, I'm emphasizing this to show that any one of us, leave the politics aside, put the politics away, whether they're within their strategy to make it ever so alive, that is up to them. That's what they've chosen. But I'm saying issues of fundamental human rights are sacrosanct, and any one of us can be a victim. There's a very senior lawyer who was head of subject commercial transactions at LDC. He was picked up by that very security chief I'm talking about, who was operating a detention center, and took him to a safe house. Reason for doing so, because he witnessed an agreement, sale of land, which in his opinion, the security chief thought was fraudulent. A lawyer. And that lawyer was no other than a partner of the then Minister for Defense. So you can imagine at that level, a person being subject of human rights abuses. Now, we are talking about helpless people. Those whose voices...
Just let me come in with a statement that the minister, who's a lawyer, read to Parliament and to the nation yesterday.
Yes.
In the unlikely event, I want to underline the word unlikely event, that infraction by individual agents of government, whether in the scope of the employment or outside the scope of their employment, or even where private citizens are involved in alleged abuses, the matter can only be addressed in specific terms and not in a casual and generalized way.
Much obliged.
The minister says,
yes,
in the unlikely event. What you're saying is that actually unlikely, it is likely that this can happen.
Actually, the statement was signed by General Kaindo Tafiti. General Mohozi only read it to Parliament. So to the extent, I think the person who takes ownership of the statement is the one who appended the signature. Human rights abuses the world over are subject to independent investigations. Now, you have persons here, government, particularly on the floor of Parliament, which is very okay for a leader of the opposition to bring it to the floor of Parliament and make it an issue of national importance for determination by Parliament. But as a lawyer from my vantage position, we have robust processes for redress of human rights abuses in this country. He's mentioned appointment of a coroner or an inquest where circumstances concerning a person's death are not very clear. Torture, the Torture Act, the Anti-Torture Act, actually no longer, it just not only places liability on the government, but also the person, the individual committing the acts of torture. In fact, torture is even a crime of international jurisdiction. You can be tried for torture anywhere. Charles Taylor's son is serving 145 years in a US jail for having committed torture, acts of torture in his country. So
he could only be prosecuted and
he had run into exile.
Yes.
He had run into exile.
And his father was no longer in power.
Father was no longer in power.
Yes.
So now,
does that make a difference?
Well, I'm bringing to your attention the remedies and the areas of redress. That they cannot just be confined to the politics.
I'm afraid, Edgar, you're missing the context.
And what is the context that you're talking about?
The context is that you have a government in power.
Yes.
That is the one also responsible for.
Exactly, and we go back to that statement. General Kahindo Tafire makes reference to a nascent democracy. And he gave a little bit of history on how we transitioned from the movement, no party, to a pluralistic society, multipartism. Now, a nascent democracy, by the very nature of the adjective nascent, it's young, it's immature, and attempts at deepening are likely to produce birth prangs of democracy, as we are seeing. Now, for us to make it more vibrant, one, we must engage the institutions, the independent institutions outside of the politics, the judiciary, and hopefully also the police. The Human Rights Commission should also, in circumstances like this, be proactive and take what would you call investigative steps.
They have done so.
The question of their independence has come up, and many of their statements, quite frankly, from a practitioner's point of view, have been lacking. Their hearings are not open. Their hearings are not open.
They used to be.
They used to be. Under Kagwa, they used to be. And who's Sekaja, Margaret Sekaja? And they used to have a cause list. And persons, the hearings.
I remember I was investigations officer.
No, you were at Uganda.
Gentlemen, we need to take a break. We need to take a break.
I was an investigations officer.
Yes, and the hearings were robust then. They were robust then.
Even the investigations.
Can we pick up?
Even the investigations were robust then.
Can we pick up your submission? Your submission after a very short commercial break.
Okay.
In the statement, it says democracies evolve. Uganda is one of them. We have made tremendous, remarkable strides from the individual merit of the movement system to where we are at the moment. It's a very interestingly worded statement. We'll be picking bits and pieces along the way as we discuss. Let's take a break and continue with this conversation in a bit.
Frontline. Uganda, are you ready for a reggae-filled night sipping on some red wine? You better be, because UB40 featuring Ali Campbell is here. Tickets available on tangticketing.com.
Are you having headache, sore throat, muscle pain, toothache, or fever? Then use Curamo Plus. Curamo Plus is strong on pain and gentle on stomach. It's available in all drug shops countrywide. It's not recommended for children under the age of 12 years. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Attention! Many of you have been signed backroom sheets. That has to stop. Engineer Kajubi induce classing session. No school fees. Kati waliwo abagamba nti all mabati are the same. Mbalaba. It seems you want a retake in building your home. Some of you go to make road call on your roof, only to find that karate yasoke. Eyo mupeyo. And those of you taking shortcuts, eyo nyondo kumutwe. Now, let me tell you, superior quality Terimba, Nera, ask for Uganda badge because nothing makes it superior. What is it?
Choose from Uganda Butty's wide range of superior quality roof sheets and make your home the pride of the neighborhood.
Oh, this is what I call a home.
Uganda Butty, nothing beats superior quality.
Are you an investor or have you always wanted to invest in Uganda? The State House Investor Protection Unit is here to review and collaboratively coordinate to resolve issues that affect you. As a protection unit, we promise to uphold the highest standards of honesty, transparency, vigilance, and collaborate with stakeholders to empower you. Find us at Plot 51B, Lumumba Avenue, Nakasero, Kampala, Uganda, or call us on 0414-250-284 or 0326 100 630. You can also WhatsApp on 0764 001244 or email info@statehouseinvest.go.ug with any queries or inquiries.
Dreamline Furniture brings you the best comfort to your home. Come and buy international world-class furniture from Dreamline Furniture, ranging from sofa sets, dining tables, king-size beds, TV stands, among others. Right from Turkey to Kampala. Save that air ticket money and get quality and durability at Dreamline Furniture. Located opposite Shell Ginger Road, Kampala. Ample parking spaces available behind the Winton Road. Dreamline Furniture. Comfort at its best.
Mujje mulabe music, mujje munyumirwe music, mujje mulabe abantu abayimba okuva ku mwoyo. Mujje bangi, mujje mwenna. Kubakazi abangi mu nsi n'olonda mu wange, nze njimaze emikwano ginkeese, yegwe gwe ndowooza wenneebaka mwebe ndoota mu kikadde. Buenaventura, Kuserena, hey, mujje mulabe.
For reservations, call 0774-982-040. Dress code Chikade. Sponsored by MTN.
Where luxury meets tranquility.
Frontline.
You're still watching the Frontline on NBS TV with Deputy Attorney General Jackson Kafuzi, the Executive Director at the Uganda Media Center, and frontliner of Pondo, lawyer Edgar Tabaro, and the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, who's Member of Parliament for Butambala and a member of the National Unity Platform. We have a lot of messages, and many people from our last show. The debate about how many messages do you take, how many do you leave out. But the number of messages that we're receiving for the show are increasing every day. So we'll have difficulty reading all of them and continuing the discussion in here. But also denying you the voice as a viewer is a difficult decision for us to make. We'll try to see how much balance we can achieve. Someone is asking, is the minister's statement out in public domain? Please share. Of course, it is out in the public domain. The minister read it out on the floor of Parliament yesterday. And that Parliament was covered live, including by NBS TV here. So, Louis Okello, you can access that statement. It's available. Someone says, someone called Julius from Kingam in Kabarole District is watching the show and says, my interest was about Kibalama. The Prime Minister came and said, we have him, and the Minister is saying, we don't know him. Now, who is right? And another thing is that when they changed themselves to be like from NGOs, it's when they got information. What's that information? That they had to disguise as NGO people to get information from the victims. Another viewer, Arthur Andoineho, says, as if opposition is using the issue of human rights to maintain their political space, which indeed they have achieved, and not until opposition revises and reassesses the factor that the issue of human rights concerns both government and opposition, not one against the other, we shall regard the actions of the opposition as merely political. That's Arthur Andoineho. I have a message from, it's a fairly long message. William Mubiru in Nabingo. The photo below is of the late Kizito Mihigo, the gospel singer who was brutally murdered, and his killer said the poor man of God committed suicide inside a police cell.
By hanging on.
Whoever says that Uganda today has got the worst record of human rights abuse on the continent is very wrong. The problem some Ugandans is to forget very quickly. Lastly, murder is the premeditated killing of a human being by another. It is therefore very wrong for Mr. Mwanga Chivumbi and many other opposition fellows to say that people who died or accidentally killed by stray bullets during the riot on 18th and 19th of November 2020, or those who were knocked by vehicles, were murdered. That's from Nabingo somewhere. Ken Mutenyo says,
understand English differently.
On democracy, Afrobarometer released research findings about the state of democracy in Uganda today. 81% of Ugandans prefer democracy, but only 44% of them are satisfied with the democracy being supplied. The fight for human rights in Uganda has now been politicized, driven mainly by those interested in becoming leader of opposition and a platform for re-election in 2026. Nobody condones human rights abuses, but some of these people, of these MPs, must stop dancing on graves of the victims. We must talk and find solutions, because the day we stop talking is the day we will start fighting. We must be talking about redress, remedies available to the victims, and debating whether the abuses happened or not. That's Ken Mutenyo. James Nkojo Kano in Porongo says opposition should stop playing double standards. Human rights applies to all. The NUP people opted to beat Majambere to tatters, almost to death, and they failed to produce the perpetrators when they knew those who beat Majambere during the burial of the late Naduli's son. I have another message from BMK Gift, who says, I find it sad and unfortunate when different government institutions deliberately decide to give different accounts in relation to the missing 18. Whereas General Muhoozi's statement partly alleges that the relatives of the missing people refused to cooperate with the police investigators, Ms. Mariam Fawzat Wangadia's Uganda Human Rights Commission never alleged that some of those people never existed, while others willingly closed the files. Which is which? Anyway, all in all, what remains factual is that some Ugandans were picked up by security agents before, during, and after the 2021 elections. Some of them were released and returned back to their families, while others have never returned back 2 years or so later. That's BMK Gift in Nansana. I also take a message from...
Can I read a message from somebody adversely mentioned by Edgar?
Go ahead.
This is Honorable Mariam Wangadia. The chairperson of the Human Rights Commission has used my phone and has sent a message to say, it is not true as alleged by Edgar that our hearings are not open. They are always and without exception open. This is the Honorable Mariam Wangadia, the chairperson of Uganda Human Rights Commission.
Justice Mariam Wangadia.
Yes.
Not a justice. She's not a justice. Just chairperson of
the Uganda Human Rights Commission.
I stand guided.
So, yes.
In the past, they used to give us hearing cause lists. Actually, they used to post them in the New Vision at the time.
It costs money, but the issue you had raised falsely, the issue you raised falsely was that the hearing of Uganda Human Rights Commission is now closed.
Yes.
They are closed. And she's saying they are without exception.
Probably, Edgar, you are less busy then. So you could kindly ask for me, that there are people with police case references. Where has police reached with those investigations since those people reported disappearance of their people in 2019-2021? It's a question from Amos. Let's come back to the discussion here. Edgar, I promised that I would give you an opportunity to conclude your thought, and then I'll come to Mwanga Chivumbi.
Now, nascent democracies, you're likely to have the kind of thing that we are witnessing. And for us to deepen the democracy, one, we have to engage with the institutions and the mechanisms for redress. Death as a cause of action is a remedy that is available. The families of the 56 can sue government for damages. It has a background to it. In 1966, you recall the events at Nankolabie, when the government...
No, 64.
No, Nankolabie. 64, yeah, 64. When
remember, I was alive then.
No. You were alive, but you were not following events. And the source of the skirmishes is...
Can you come back to what we're discussing?
Yes,
You're stretching us back.
Yeah, you can't... I'm giving the origin, the background to death as a cause of action. So all these matters that are being put on the floor of Parliament, unfortunately, are taking the political, only political what? On the political course, undertone. But I'm also saying under the law, we have remedies to redress these excesses that are being indicated. There's an aspect that came out in the annexures. I think B or C, the one that gives the SOPs on use of lethal force. Now, it would be important. I don't know. I used to be the shadow minister for internal affairs in the previous. Yeah, but I think we need to investigate, to conduct an inquiry. Parliament needs to conduct an inquiry as to, one, preparedness in terms of skills and tools of our security agencies in handling riotous situations.
Okay.
Because some of these excesses may be as a result of poor skills and poor training.
Maybe as a result.
Yes.
What is the other possibility?
The other possibility, it could, impunity. But that we can only establish if we make an inquiry into that. As for now, there's an accusation and a counter.
We're going to have Honorable Mwanga Chivombe respond. Specifically, the report by the minister says, in regard to the November 2020 death,
yes.
This is the language he uses. 56 people lost their lives, including those by gunshot wounds, and others, of course, by other means. 46 of those were male adults, 3 male juveniles. 48 of the victims were from Kampala metropolitan area,
yes.
So Kampala, Mukono, Wakiso, other areas. 2 were from Jinja, 2 from Luwero, 1 from Rakai, 1 from Luengo, 1 from Chinoni, 1 from Butambala, and 1 from Mpiji.
None from Luka district, where the arrest was carried out?
Yes, that is part of the statement from the minister. You've listened to the responses from the Deputy Attorney General to Edgar. I'd like to give you time to respond.
Yeah, one, I find it a little bit contradictory. One, let's speak about trust. Government inherently run on the trust of the people. When there is no trust between those who govern and those who are governed, then you have a huge national problem. Because if you are squeezed, the first resort is for you to run to your government. But now, if it's your government that is abusing you, that is arresting you, then there is no trust. So you are not going to go, the same people cannot go to the people. You don't need to even instigate them from a political headquarters, but please don't respond. There is collapse of trust.
I would want to imagine that there is no presumption that trust would be 100%, or that the distrust would be 100%.
You are talking about in the relative terms.
Yes.
In relative terms, governments must enjoy, government institutions must enjoy the trust of the people. And there should be the resort where people resort to. So that is one. And I find it scandalous that government was to admit that it had lost the trust of the people. That should concern a serious government agency. That under investigation, these circumstances, people can't even, did people refuse to cooperate? They cooperated to an NGO. So that means they did not trust this government.
They cooperated with what they believed was an
what
NGO.
they believed was an NGO. So did the people refuse to cooperate? No. The people did not trust government. That is all. They did not refuse. No, because the argument they were advancing in the report is that the people refused to cooperate. No, they did not. They cooperated to an NGO. So they did not trust the government agencies. And the Minister of Government should have been very concerned for lack and collapse of trust. Second issue. People are trying to divorce politics from these issues. It's very, very extremely hard and ridiculous. Because all these matters came up because there was a presidential contest. So they are products and grandchildren of politics. So you cannot stand on national TV and begin to spin that these people are being political. So first and foremost, these are political issues. And broadly, how do we elect our leaders? If I stand to be a president, or go out on bail, even if Tabaro today, you seriously became a serious contender for president, we will discover that you have raped. We will discover that you have done many horrible things.
In Toro, we don't.
No, I'm telling you, if you dare today become, if you allow the candidate.
Maybe because we haven't aspired.
That's when we'll know how terrible you are, how you know, how do we contest for elections? For me, these are big issues. The second issue is that, one, OO says there were 1,000 and about 1,400. True, 1,400. Let's cascade them one. Some were released. Afterwards, unlawful detention. Is that lawful? Unlawful, they were detained in ungazetted places. They were released after, not after days or hours, as stipulated in the Constitution. You are a lawyer. The Constitution set a bar.
48 hours.
48 hours. Were these people detained beyond what the Constitution provides? The answer is yes. Was it for hours? Was it for days? For months. And they were detained and they were released in their hundreds. Others, civilians, were on trial in a court-martial. While this is very interesting. The other day, last week, I saw a terrorist being tried in
the so-called civil court.
In the so-called civil court. A terrorist suspect being tried in a civil court by this very government. But someone who was arrested in a riot is in a court-martial. How can a government that we speak to and calls itself a democratic government operate like that? How can we have esteemed lawyers presiding over a judicial system, a system that behaves that way? And you want people to trust you? So you are talking about, so what are you arguing about is impunity. Now, we have cascaded those that were released after unlawful arrest, unlawful denial, in abuse of our Constitution. Even Tabaro, the man of arrest is addressed in the Penal Code. If you are to arrest me, you know what the Penal Code says.
It's a criminal procedure.
It's a criminal
procedure code, not the Penal Code.
Whatever. But even if you are to arrest me, there is a way I should be arrested, because you are talking about the dignity of citizens. You are talking about now.
Mr. Mongosi, I just need to add just a supplement on what you're saying. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yes.
If the security organizations, there's an act that was passed in 1987, enacted in 1987, that regulates the manner in which security agencies may participate in an arrest of a person. The power resides with the police.
Yes. But see, we can all speak to, even today, in Uganda, there are safe houses. Even today, there are Ugandans being arrested and detained for more than 48 hours. It's this impunity that this whole stand is about. We must put a full stop to this impunity. Now, who could do it? The question is, if they were citizens, you would have had more arrests. If there were citizens that had made this standoff, okay, going to the street to demonstrate, to picket, They would have been arrested and detained, and they would have been. So legislators chose conveniently to make this stand because we are the firewall. I want to really go after this argument. Let me first finish my case, and then say we are now talking about people who have disappeared. I have senior lawyers here. He was my lawyer before, in the Constitutional Court. He was my counsel. Tabaro, you were senior counsel. Disappearance of people is a crime against humanity, and triable by the International Criminal Court. Now, who is on oath? Before the government can approve my social welfare, it has to ensure my life, protection of my life and property. Are we talking about people who have disappeared? Now, on record, government says these 18, they can't account. But then, every record indicates that at one time, these 18s were in the hands of government. The Prime Minister, in the case of Chibarama, is on record saying, we have Chibarama. So this government you are talking about, that's why now you are giving us a way out. Should we go to Parliament and demand an inquest? Maybe on Tuesday. Watch the space. Are we on the right track? Yes. We should have done first things first. First of all, if we had demanded for inquest first, we would have said, members of Parliament, first use your platform to demand for this accountability, for political accountability. I think we've been clear, consistent, and step by step. As they say, process by process. We are getting where we want to get this government to be. It's an abuse, it's murdering citizens, it's detaining them with impunity, it's abusing human rights. There's disregard to the rule of law and abuse of the Constitution.
Opono Pondo accuses you, as members of the opposition, of deliberately trying to keep this issue alive, knowing that there is...
No.
Yes?
The word accusation is the wrong one. Because I'm saying they're entitled to it, so that I'm simply telling my listeners that they're exploiting it. I'm not making an accusation. It is their right to do so. And I even I put a rider. I said the onus is on the side of government to make sure that this stratagem of the Kivumbis does not succeed.
And invited them to the field.
But let me ask you, if you are in our shoes, your supporters disappeared, and government although consistent, allows a response. Do you have an option to keep quiet?
No,
I'm asking. Do you have an option
can I respond?
to keep quiet? And if you choose to consistently speak out for the people who have disappeared, are you being political?
First of all, if I were in your shoes, my supporters would not be riotous. They would not be belligerent to law enforcement, including getting power source to cut down electricity poles, to cut down CCTV poles, like that fellow who was shot actually in Mukono. He was cutting down a CCTV pole.
In a riot?
In a riot, during the riot. True, the ones in Weyogere, they came with, they drove a bulldozer, they brought excavator, and brought boulders, and dumped huge boulders on the junction of Nambole and going to Chikajo. My supporters would not do that. My supporters would
in a democracy. In a democracy.
Is that allowed in a democracy?
No, in a democracy, where do you draw the line between riot and demonstration?
Unfortunately, apparently, you haven't read the response of General Kahindo Tafire to Parliament yesterday. They attach annexures, including writings as far back as 2017 from the Commander-in-Chief, the President of Uganda, how each kind of member of the public, including rioters, should be handled. In that writing, the President is saying, for example, if a rioter listens to the command of the police, why even punch him with a blow? Yeah,
proportionate
why
force.
use a gun to hit
Talks
him?
of proportionate
Why
force.
torture him if you have subdued, if he has listened to the command of the
Subjected
police?
himself to the,
You can only use force to a rioter who is countering police, law enforcement with force. That's the one he should. So please go back and read.
I have read.
No.
I have read the
the
report.
This is what I'm saying, because you're asking me, where do we make the distinction, the boundary? And I'm saying, for example, if the police came here to arrest me and I submit, I don't expect that police, if they are professional, to beat me. However, if I carry this bottle and I throw it at them, or I remove my shoe, or I pick this table and I throw at the police, I can expect the worst, or I should expect the worst. Now, my brother Kivumba and his group think that they, as Ugandans, under the human rights, you should be able to do anything to the police officers, and you should not expect their consequences. I wish you luck if you think that that's how the real world operates. Better tell your followers, better tell your supporters that while you have the right to protest, you don't have a right to assault a law enforcement officer, especially the one who's armed.
Okay.
Because under the law, the law enforcement is actually protected if you can demonstrate that you used with force which is commensurate to what you were throwing at them. And I just want to wind up with what General Mohozi said, because you had quoted him out of context, because he said that in the likely event that a law enforcement officer,
in the
unlikely event, a law enforcement officer abuses a right.
Because it's not the norm.
It is not the norm. The case you are referring to, and many of the cases we are referring to, are not the norm. Because ask yourself, I want to believe that NUP is a national party, and that day they were campaigning, they were having supporters elsewhere. Ask yourself, why is it that those who were shot and subsequently died, the majority of cases are in specific places? Why are they not in Tororo? Why were they not in Arua? Why are they not in Igulu? And so on, and so on, and so forth. So there is a politics which the Mwanga Kivumbis are trying to build, that you can behave the way you want, and because you can run to the media, you can run to the international community, because they have not only run to Parliament, they have gone to ICC, as you know. They have gone to American government, they have gone to the Senate, they have gone to senators in America, and so on. So, if that's what they are doing because they are playing politics, there's the law of Uganda. There's the law of Uganda. And time is going to come when you will answer to the laws of Uganda, no matter how you play to the garden of the international world. Time is going to come. We are not just bragging. Building a democracy, building a country, is not a picnic.
It's not talking the talk.
It's not a picnic. If you think, why has Mwanga Kivumbwi not been shot? Isn't he protesting? But he's protesting within the limits allowed by the law. That's why you haven't got the same treatment. Go tomorrow and pick a stone and start throwing, and you see whether just by virtue of being a member of parliament, the bullets which is controlling rioters will spare you.
You see, just a quick question. Should security enforcement use live ammunition to deal with lethal power?
Otherwise, why does Parliament approve the budget to buy live ammunition? Why? Why? And it has not given UPDF, which is ordinarily supposed to deal with our external enemies. The Parliament, in its wisdom, has given the police the law. The law.
He was Shadow Minister for Internal Affairs and Defense.
And again, the president's letter in the annex here is actually detailing when, if you are a trained force, when can you apply lethal force? The case I was referring to, that somebody who's belligerent, surely will get. In fact, the president
when you
says
talk of belligerence,
should be proportionate
that's an act of war.
force.
It becomes an act of war, not just a riot.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you throw a stone
The
like
force
that,
should be
like that fellow,
proportionate.
like that fellow, like that in those Nup guys who staged the roadblock, and they were robbing people. Two, the ones who had hammers and were hitting policewomen. What would you expect? In fact, to me, our police was highly restrained.
Mwanga Chivombi needs to respond.
But you see, when you are going to lose an argument, you try to make a long verbal tirade.
But you made a longer one. You made a longer one,
listen,
my brother.
Let me give you a short, precise answer. If those who are criminal, they were acts of a criminal nature.
Of belligerence, he says.
Yes, the law speaks to it and how you can address it. Arrest them, detain them, okay, in a gazetted place, within 48 hours, arraign them in the courts of law.
Prosecute them.
Prosecute them. No. Listen, listen, you've been speaking.
The reason they are remedy is that the framers of the Constitution anticipated that there would be likelihood of abuse.
Listen, the minister makes a response to that.
Gentlemen,
there have been recruitment of judicial officers.
Gentlemen, allow
the reason for remedy is that the framers of the law anticipated a likelihood of abuse.
Allow Mwanga Chivombi to respond.
That's why I've said I will give you this time a short.
He's outnumbered on the show, so allow him to respond. Let's give him.
The other day they outnumbered.
I'll give you a short and precise answer.
Why are you crying for him?
The Constitution, all the laws and the acts we have in this country speaks to the facts how we can deal with the law breakers. Arrest them. The man of arrest is known. Even if you are to use force, use reasonable force that is proportionate to the challenge you confront. After arrest, detain them in gazetted places, prosecute them within 48 hours. That's the law, which you want people to observe. Give you a right to detain people in ungazetted places. Detain them for more than 48 hours. Before detaining them, make them disappear for years. Prosecute them in military courts. People who have acted. So you are speaking about, and then you are making also wrong, a very big case, is that the directives of the president were ignored by the law enforcement officers. If the president, let me make a case. If the president issued those directives, laid out the benchmarks on how security forces, how comes we have impunity? Is the president in charge? Do we have a government that speaks to the authority of the president? So, in your long verbal attempt to defend the indefensible, just know you are embarrassing the president. You are demonstrating that your government is abusing the Constitution. You are lawbreakers. You are murderers. You have crimes against humanity.
Let's have the Attorney General come in here.
Is the basket empty?
What did he call it?
Is the basket?
What?
Let's
have the Attorney General come in on this. And I want to put part of the issues that he's raising, but I want to put specific questions. How do you, as government, explain the contradictions over an individual called Chibalama? The Prime Minister went on the floor of Parliament and told the nation that government had Chibalama, knew where he was, explained the circumstances of his arrest. Then, following statements, can't account for Chibalama. Where is Chibalama?
And why did they
I'm made to understand that the two statements did not refer to the same Chibalama. The Prime Minister was talking in respect of a different Chibalama. Chibalama, the founder of NUP. She was speaking in respect of that person.
Which one?
Chibalama, the founder of NUP.
And it's also
if you are interested, you can seek more information on that.
But don't take us for fools.
Just a moment.
No.
First allow him. Let him respond. I'll give you time.
I cannot accept.
To the best of my knowledge.
No. For heaven's sake.
The Prime Minister has
I respect
stated.
you, but don't take that line, sir.
No, I'm speaking.
I respect you as a person, as an individual, and I request you.
And your former counsel.
And my former counsel. You are above that. If that can't be you, don't go that far. Please,
can you allow the Attorney General to respond?
Allow me. I think you're being very unfair to him.
To do what?
You're being very unfair to the person of Jackson Kafuzi.
Let's allow the
I'm giving you the position
please,
of the Prime Minister. Okay? She says she was speaking in respect of a different Chibalama, the founder of NUP.
Was Chibalama, at the time she gave a statement, being looked for?
I'm made to understand Chibalama, the founder of NUP, had been arrested at some point, detained, and probably charged or released.
He was at the Bombo Military Hospital.
So to the best of my knowledge, she was speaking in respect of that, and that is her position. That's what she has asserted. Now, Chibalama, what's the other name?
John somebody?
Henry?
Chibalama who? You give us
Chibalama referred to by NUP. The records of police indicate that the police approached his home, the relatives, they refused to cooperate. When they went as an NGO, they got information that he left home going to defend a thesis. He was a master's student. And he was not seen or heard of since then. So they do actually that's the one they call unwitnessed, because his vehicle was found with a laptop, iPad, and his books and his phone. So they do not know. No one can pinpoint to say the police took him or so and so took him, because he left home and his vehicle was found parked somewhere. So that's what they called unwitnessed disappearance. Okay? Now, the records indicate that that particular Chibalama had gone out of the country and returned, I think, is it 2014 or thereabout?
The last time.
The last time, yes, he had used his passport. So ideally, they have not seen the records of his passport showing exit.